If you suffer from locked up hips that are affecting your posture, your ability to squat, and especially your yoga practice, I'd like to invite you to my 21-day hip opening challenge. Opening up your hips is so important. Here are some of the most common benefits that students report. The first one is probably the least obvious but the most important, and that's knee health and lower back health. Many people don't realize this, but tight hips affect your standing posture, your running posture, your lifting and your squatting posture, which can have a direct negative impact on your knees and your lower back. When you open up your hips, your body is able to stack more appropriately in all of its basic movement patterns, and you protect your knees and your lower back. The next big benefit is just ease in yoga. If you're a yoga student, you probably noticed that about half of yoga poses require quite a bit of hip flexibility and mobility. So if you're suffering through yoga classes, I know I used to, opening up your hips is one of the best ways to enjoy your practice, get access to more poses, and really stay committed long term. Another big benefit is you just improve your posture. When your hips are open, you can sit upright. You'll find your seated posture at the office and the car better. You'll find greater comfort and ease when you're traveling, like on airplanes. You'll find your running gait improves, and especially when you're doing things under stress, like squatting and lifting, or if you do any weightlifting at the gym, all of your alignment will improve when your hips are open. Last but not least, you'll have more power and more speed. If you talk to anyone who is a power lifter, anyone who's a sprinter, they're always obsessed with hip mobility because greater range of motion allows for greater speed and greater power. Why are our hips so tight? It's really a complex thing. Hip mobility is not just one thing. Many people don't realize this, but there's over 20 different muscles involved in your hip flexibility. And hip flexibility is also not just one thing. We have flexion, we have extension, we have abduction, we have adduction, we have external rotation, internal rotation. Our hips are very complex and dynamic. What this means is to open them up, we need to work very deeply and very diligently. It's much more complicated to open your hips than it is to open your hamstrings, for example, but the benefits are also much more far-reaching. So why are our hips so tight? Well, aside from that complexity, I really realized this back in 2003. When I first started teaching, I moved to Southeast Asia. I moved to Bangkok in Thailand. And the first thing any Western yoga teacher will tell you when they move to Asia is, whoa, all my students have open hips. We're not used to this, right? In the West, most people have tight hips. In the East, most people have open hips. It's a real eye-opener. And what you realize is that in these cultures, it's much more common to squat. In Thailand, for example, there's still squat toilets. You'll see people squatting, waiting for the bus. You'll see people squatting, doing laundry, squatting, even eating. In Western culture, think about your life, for example, today. You probably rolled out of bed, you sat on an elevated toilet, you drove to work in a car, you sat in a cubicle, and then you repeated the process all the way back to bed. Our hip range of motion is shockingly limited. Very little flexion, very little extension, almost no internal or external rotation. And because of that, by the time you're in your 20s, most people are completely locked up. And that's why if you go to a room like this and you tell people to sit on the floor, they tend to sit like this with their back curled up, their knees off the ground. When you ask people to do very simple poses like this, sitting on the ground, something like a full lotus pose, completely inaccessible. While this can seem like an extreme pose at first glance, it's not extreme at all once you open up your hips. What we do to open up our hips is something called gravity yoga. If you've never heard of gravity yoga before, we developed this at YOGABODY over a decade ago. What gravity yoga is a supplemental practice for flexibility specifically. What that means is if you're a runner or a power yoga student or a CrossFitter, don't quit doing that, but add gravity yoga to what you're doing already to supplement flexibility. Again, you got 20 plus muscles affecting your hip mobility. You can't just do a couple of stretches every day and expect to affect change. You have to do some very deep work. Gravity yoga consists basically of two different things. Number one is deep passive stretching. Passive stretching means you go into a deep pose and you go like a noodle, completely relaxed. Number two, we do a very specific type of nose to mouth breathing that stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. Basically, it flips off your stretch reflex so you can go deeper. So we're holding poses for 2 to 5 minutes. We're breathing in a very specific way, and the transformation that you'll see in your body is very quick. The question I get right away is, 21 days, is that enough? Will I be able to sit in full lotus? No, you won't be able to sit in full lotus, but you will see massive, massive changes. And even more importantly, you'll lay the foundation for huge changes over time. Flexibility doesn't come as quickly as strength gains do, but the changes that you make last for many, many years. So if you go from here to here, this mobility, this flexibility gains will often have very long-lasting effects. Here's how it works. Every day, for 21 days, I'll do a live broadcast video. You can join me live or catch the replay. Any questions you have, post them in the group chat and they'll come directly to me. I will answer all your questions personally. It's just me and you. Essentially what happens is I mostly travel and teach, and I mostly just teach teacher training courses this year. And so students are always asking me, hey, can we come take your class? And the answer is usually no, I don't have many public classes. But this is my attempt to connect with you one-on-one, as we might do if we had a group class here in Barcelona. The program is simple. Open up your phone, open up the app, and off we go. Every day, 15 minutes, 21 days, hip opening challenge. Hope you can join us. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon.